Bad legislation isn't just an inconvenience, it can mean life or death for people on the margins. And in today's political climate, harmful bills are often rushed through, under the radar, wrapped in deceptive language, and passed before most of us even know what hit us. And now, after the passing of Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill, it's more important now than ever to be ready to weather the storm of bad legislation. Fortunately, we're not powerless. Here are a few steps to survive bad legislation. The first thing we must do is learn to read between the lines. Not all bills wave red flags from the start. Many use neutral or positive-sounding names. For instance, in the One Big Beautiful Bill, terms like Medicaid reforms, extending tax cuts, no tax on tips, and overtime are all very misleading. The tax cuts allow for over 70% of benefits to flow to the top 20%. The no tax on tips is only a temporary benefit and loses impact when it's overshadowed by deeper cuts in Medicaid, SNAP, clean energy, and a rising federal debt. Energy independence is going to roll back a lot of eco-friendly initiatives, and border funding is going to make for disproportionate policing in marginalized communities. Be wary of any kind of misleading wording used in these bills. You can do this by checking the distribution tables and seeing who truly benefits from a policy. Read the fine print. If reform includes work requirements, eligibility burdens, or expiration dates, that's a sign. Watch the baseline and be wary when deficit claims depend on shifting accounting assumptions. And consider the context. Reconciliation bills are often rushed with limited debate, which is perfect for sneaking in hidden carve-outs or harmful riders. Next, it's very important to get loud even when it feels pointless. It's easy to feel like shouting into the void, but pressure works, especially when it's organized. Here are a few things you can do to make your voice count. Call your representatives, not just once, but multiple times. Be polite, firm, and specific about what you oppose and why. Submit public comments. Many bills require public hearings or written feedback. Flood them with your testimony. And show up to the town halls, school board meetings, or city councils and bring people with you. Show them that we're watching. Your voice may feel small alone, but collective noise can shake the walls. Another very important step is building mutual defense. Surviving bad legislation means protecting one another when institutions won't. This can include creating community networks and organizing locally to share resources, transportation, food, and emergency funds. Legal support teams. If legislation leads to increased policing or surveillance, know your rights and connect with legal aid. And underground support. If laws restrict healthcare access, communities can find ways to safely distribute information, transport, or care across state lines. In other words, no one gets through this alone. Finally, we must organize, resist, and replace. It's not enough to play defense forever. We need to build something better. Support grassroots candidates who come from working class, queer, disabled, and immigrant backgrounds. Join or form unions with abolitionists, labor unions, or tenants' rights. And push for people's legislation. Draft bills, run campaigns, and write policy that serves the people and not just corporate lobbyists. Remember, bad laws can be repealed, systems can be dismantled, and power can be reclaimed. So who is most at risk from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and what can they do? Low-income households are particularly vulnerable under the new legislation. Changes such as the imposition of work requirements for Medicaid, stricter eligibility for SNAP, and tax breaks that favor the wealthy all pose risks. In order to prepare, individuals should consider applying or recertifying for benefits before new rules take effect. Joining local mutual aid networks or food cooperatives can offer extra support. Legal aid services can help navigate the red tape surrounding new eligibility requirements, and those relying on Medicaid should also start documenting their work or volunteer hours now, just in case they're needed later. Disabled individuals face unique challenges due to work requirements that often fail to account for invisible or fluctuating disabilities. This could lead to loss of Medicaid or essential home care assistance, especially if federal support programs are slashed. In order to prepare for this, people should connect with disability justice organizations such as ADAPT, the Disability Rights Education and Defense Fund, or the ARC. It's also wise to review medical documentation that could be used in appeals and to build local support networks that can advocate or intervene in cases of abuse or discrimination. Contacting representatives and local agencies about how the bill affects independent living can also be an important step. Service workers may be misled by temporary tax cuts on tips, which could lead to increased IRS scrutiny without offering long-term financial security. With few protections against wage theft, no improvements to healthcare access, and no increase in the minimum wage, this group remains precarious. Workers should carefully track their tips and income to avoid issues at tax time, and they should join or organize labor unions like the Restaurant Opportunity Centers United or Unite Here can provide some collective power and protection. Learning your legal rights regarding wages, overtime, and benefits is also crucial. And where possible, advocate for city-level protections like living wage ordinances. The LGBTQ community may face reduced access to inclusive health care and a possible loss of Medicaid-funded gender-affirming care. Provisions citing religious freedom or school choice could also increase discrimination and surveillance. In preparation, it's a good idea to secure care or prescriptions ahead of time. Knowing where to find safe, affirming providers, such as through Plume or local LGBTQ clinics, can make a difference. Mutual aid groups often provide support with housing, medication, or travel. And for those at risk of being surveyed or harassed, training in digital security is also advisable. The BIPOC community is likely to be disproportionately harmed by cuts to Medicaid, housing assistance, and SNAP. These groups may also be targeted through increased police funding, ICE enforcement, and law and order measures. Tax reforms that benefit generational wealth tend to leave these communities behind. To counter these threats, individuals can get involved with grassroots racial justice organizations such as Color of Change, the Movement for Black Lives, or the Indigenous Environmental Network. Monitoring police and immigration activity, educating communities about their rights, and building local resilience networks focused on food, housing, and bail support are key steps. It's also important to stay alert to redistricting or voter suppression strategies linked to the bill. Undocumented individuals and mixed-status families are particularly at risk due to expanded ICE enforcement, larger border security budgets, and increased data sharing that could restrict access to benefits. Preparation should start with knowing your rights, regardless of legal status. Resources from NILC or United We Dream can help. Families should create safety plans in case of raids. People should be cautious about providing sensitive information on federal applications if protections are unclear. And legal clinics and immigrant defense networks can provide vital support. Many rural communities are heavily reliant on Medicaid and SNAP, both of which are vulnerable to funding cuts. Additionally, clean energy rollbacks could limit rural job growth in solar and wind sectors, while cuts to public transportation and broadband internet would further isolate these areas. Residents can support one another by joining local cooperatives that provide food, electricity, or broadband services. Pushing for county-level assistance to replace lost federal support can also make a difference. If fossil fuel expansion threatens the local environment, documenting those impacts early on is absolutely essential. And finally, this bill is a major setback for climate and environmental justice. It eliminates clean energy incentives, boosts fossil fuel subsidies, fast-tracks pipeline approvals, and slashes environmental monitoring. In response, individuals can organize around local environmental issues, including pipeline resistance and clean air initiatives. Joining broader coalitions such as 350.org, Indigenous-led campaigns, or local youth environmental groups can strengthen efforts. Communities should also monitor pollution levels and report violations, especially near industrial facilities or pipeline construction sites. Legal action may be necessary if protected lands come under threat. And finally, there are a few things that all of us can do to resist bad legislation. Sign up for legislative alerts from sites like GovTrack or Common Cause. Build or join a local mutual aid network. Support grassroots organizers who are fighting for the kinds of changes that support the people. Document your story. Sharing a personal impact can drive media and legal attention, especially on social media. Vote smart and support down-ballot candidates who represent your values. And resist locally. From city councils to school boards, small victories matter. Bad legislation like the One Big Beautiful Bill may sound good on paper, but it is quietly stripping support from the people who need the most. Community resistance and radical solidarity have always been our strongest tools, and we'll need them now more than ever. Legislation may be written in stuffy legal jargon, but its effects are painfully real. The good news is history shows that we can resist and survive. From labor strikes to civil disobedience, from mutual aid kitchens to underground clinics, we've done it before and we'll do it again. Remember, solidarity isn't a slogan, it's a survival tool. So let's use it and let's navigate this wasteland together.